Hello, everyone. Welcome to my show, going from thousands to millions. Once again, I'm excited. I'm really excited to have Kyla Kirkpatrick on my show today, the CEO and founder of Champagne Dame and Emperor Champagne. Kyla, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Sam. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. I did something very different this time before I started the interview. I actually decided to look you up and see what you do and where you're from and just get a bit of an understanding of who you are and what you've done. And you know what? Like, I'm so impressed by your story so far and where you've come from and what you have been able to achieve so far.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is that this is just the beginning. and
yes.
So I wanted to share that story. And I wanted to start off perhaps by just getting a bit of a background about you, where you're from, your childhood, because I'm a massive believer that your childhood plays a big role in who you become later on down in life. So if you want to start off with that, that'd be great.
All right, well, let's go all the way back to the beginning, shall we? I grew up in a little town called Bashiry. So grew up in the western suburbs of Melbourne. You know, it's a bit rough and tumble. We certainly weren't at parties drinking champagne, I can assure you of that. And I realized very early on that my way of escapism was through reading, and reading led to education. And I always thought that, you know, maybe there was a bigger life for me than the life that I had grown up in. And I just started putting my head in books, and I read everything from architecture to the Funk and Wagnall Encyclopaedia set. You know, that was my way of elevating myself to a different place. And I studied hard. I got perfect grades. I went off and did one of the first double degrees at Melbourne University. And, you know, you're a bit of an outsider coming from the western suburbs. I didn't have any money. I didn't have any idea of fashion. I didn't have nice clothes. I was lucky enough that people took me for me, and I'd made a great group of friends who are still my best friends to this day. And my best friends now are running major corporations. We all studied commerce together. And the way that I started my life is obviously very different to the life I lead now, which, you know, for all intents and purposes, and many people who watch me from the outside, is a very glamorous one. But fundamentally, I haven't changed as a person. I am still very humble. I'm still very grateful. I still have a very wicked sense of humour, and I don't mind trying on a little bit of Aussie slang from time to time. So my journey was certainly not a linear one. I started in banking and finance when I came out of university, and was very passionate within my job. I think that's been the one thing that's consistent in my life. I work hard. I'm always the first to the office. I'm always the last to leave. I don't mind giving 120%. I'm always there on the weekends. And then when I decided that I found my passion and my calling in 2005, which actually wasn't in finance, it was in champagne.
Yep.
And again, the first thing I did was put my head in a book. You know, I read every book there was to read on champagne. And when I ran out of books, I decided that I would write a letter to a gentleman who'd written my favorite book on champagne. And to my surprise, he wrote back to me and said, you know, not answering your questions in writing, get on a plane, come to Paris, come out to Champagne, and I will teach you everything I know. And I gave up my life that I knew, and I bought a one-way ticket to Paris, and I started again.
Wow, what a great story. So tell me, why champagne? What made you, like, why did you pick up the book on champagne? What was the interest, and why did you do that?
It's not what you think, you know. So most women say to me, oh God, you're genius for devoting yourself to champagne. Like, my house is full of champagne. My warehouse is full of champagne. I get to drink champagne every day of the week, you know, and that's a luxury. I'm drinking bottles that are up to $400-500 a bottle on a Tuesday. So of course that's a wonderful side effect of my job, but you've got to remember my story growing up. I was interested in theology and religion. I was interested in hierarchy and aristocracy. I was interested in history. I was interested in geography. I was interested in architecture. And I think all of those things combine fill my passion and my interest, and it comes from champagne. So not just the wine, but the geographical region. You know, champagne was linked with war. It was linked with very famous characters like Napoleon Bonaparte, who's kind of my mascot in my new business, Emperor. It was linked to nobility. It was connected to history. It was connected to architecture. You know, one of the most beautiful cathedrals or cathedrals in the world was built in Champagne. You know, it had a history of Roman slavery. So there's all this wonderful complex texture of story and history all weaved into this amazing product called champagne. And that gives me this feeling of being connected to something bigger. And I mean, I never tire of this. And I'm fundamentally at heart a storyteller, and that's what I do in the Champagne Dame business. You know, if you were to come and see me do a masterclass, Sam, the minute I'm on, I will go off in this amazing trance, and for 2 hours I will walk and prance and turn and tell you the whole history of champagne without taking a breath for a 2-hour period, and it lights up my world. You know, I love it. It's my passion.
I love that. And that makes a lot of sense to me. It makes a lot of sense because that's what brings all those things that you mentioned together, and represents something like, you know, the champagne is what represents all that together. And it's such an interesting way of looking at it because, you know, growing up from a similar background, you know, I grew up from a very wealthy family in Iran. We migrated to Australia and we lost everything.
Yeah.
So growing up at the age of 10 and not having my dad here and just being with my mum and sister, I grew up and I had a very rough childhood. So when I did make it within my own rights, you know, champagne, when I did go out and all that, champagne was the thing to drink.
Yes.
And I personally, you know, hadn't drank all the different brands and so on. I never ever thought about it the way you just described it. And to hear it that way, it actually makes so much sense. So I want to go back to that letter that you sent to that gentleman. First of all, I'm a massive believer of defining moments, right? Moments that change your life. A lot of the times we don't think at that moment that is a defining moment. But when we do look back throughout our career and our journey, we're like, wow, if that did happen, I wouldn't be where I am. Or if that didn't happen, I wouldn't be where I am today. So that said, to get up, and that was a defining moment, my understanding is for you, that letter and that response, right? Yeah. Were you fearful of getting up and making that journey? Like, what were you feeling? I want you to take me back there. What were the thought process to get up as a young lady and get up and just go out, buy a one-way ticket? What made you do that? Like, what were you thinking?
I think this is a really important thing to address because depending on where you sit on the spectrum of being risky or risk averse is how you live your life. And traditionally, I err towards the side of being risky in my profile. You know, I take calculated risks, but I'm still risky. Whereas some people are risk averse. Now, risk aversion can also be known as fear and self-doubt and lack of confidence, where I tend to be more risky in my profile. Now, you aren't born with a high-risk profile. You learn it. It's a series of steps where you take a little bit more of a risk and a little bit more of a risk and a little bit more of a risk until you're comfortable with that risk profile and you start taking bigger and bigger risks, and then the rewards start coming through and it pays off. So for me, this was just another risk in my life, and it was one that paid off greatly. Now, I don't ever stop for a minute and go, this won't work. This isn't going to work. If I leave my partner, my job, my security right now and take a one-way ticket to Paris, I wasn't thinking about what's going to go wrong. I was thinking about everything that could go right. And this is programming of the mind. And this is critically important for us as human beings, is to stop that negative chit-chat, turn off the naysayer who lives in your mind, and start to listen to your gut and start to listen to your intuition, who's going to guide you to a bigger journey. Because for me, I'd already overcome so much. I grew up in a poor family, good family, but you know, not a wealthy family. I had to come into a university where I was an outsider. I had to pay my way through. You know, I'd taken a lot of risks, and I'd learned that by taking risks, I was being rewarded for them. I worked hard and I was getting those rewards. So I'd already taught myself to a certain extent that if I took risks, it was going to pay dividends. This is the mindset that we as humans need to tackle, and stop listening to the what can go wrong and start listening to what can go right. And then once you've mastered this art, world is your oyster. You know, and I think so much, I was laying in bed last night and I'm grappling with a big decision at the moment to invest in something which is a high risk project. And always I'm like, let's go, Kyla, let's go. I have a lot of self-talk. I have a lot of internal dialogue. I've actually stopped having that dialogue with other people because I don't need it as much. I find that the person that I need to agree with is me. is myself. I need to trust my intuition, and I'm getting really good at that. But, you know, for once I actually sat back and said, you know, is this the right decision or is it too risky? Because I've developed such a confidence in my ability that I take on bigger and bigger and bigger challenges without fear of what could go wrong. So, you know, it's a learned skill.
You're spot on. I can so much relate to that. It's, you know, I am a massive believer that anybody can achieve anything.
Yes.
You know, there's no difference between us. Yes, life plays you different cards, and, you know, some bad and some good, and, you know, that's out of our control.
Yeah.
But if you really believe in it,
you
can achieve anything you set your mind to.
Yes.
So I totally agree with what you're saying. And I don't think it comes down to where you're from, your education, all that. Yes, they play a part in building you know, building the resilience. And, you know, for me, it was the pain of crying as a kid every day, not being able to have what other kids had at school, you know, not fitting in, you know, being bullied. And not being able to speak the language, you know, it's such a massive change as a kid. And I took that and I said, you know what? I don't ever want to feel that again.
Yeah.
I'm going to push myself, and I'm going to push myself and make things happen because I believe in myself. And, you know, and I think everybody has that in them, but it just doesn't come out. And
can I say something which really blew my mind? I won't say who it was, but I was talking to someone recently, and they said, look, I've got this really big opportunity, but it's going to be a lot of work, and I'm just not sure if I'm ready to commit to that. And I'm, you know, in my mind, I'm like, what the fuck? You know, you've got an opportunity and you're not going to take it because you're scared it's going to take too much work.
Yeah. That's mind blowing.
Mind blown. Like, I would never for a minute think that's going to be too hard, or I can't do that. I don't think that way. I actually think that I'm capable of anything at all that I set my mind to, I can achieve. Because the only person who limits you on this planet is you. It's not your husband. It's not your wife. It's not your brother, it's not your mother, it's not your children. Bullshit excuse, I'm a working mother. It's not your background, it's not how much money you've got in the bank account. Bullshit excuse, it's you. So if you think you can't do something and you're telling everybody, including the most important person being yourself, that you can't do something, you got to start changing the dialogue, and you need to sit down in front of that ugly mirror and start to think that the reason that you're not successful is you. The reason that things are going wrong is you. Now, like you said, Sam, we all get dealt a set of cards, right? Some of them are aces, some of them are queens, some of them are jacks, some of them are two. Everybody in every hand gets a 2 or a 3. You get dealt a shit hand every now and then. We all do. Even the most successful people in the world have a bad hand from time to time. It's how you pick yourself up from the bad hand and keep going around it. None of this poor me, because every single person has issues and problems. They just don't talk about it. Pick it up, keep going, keep pushing, get around yourself and start moving forward. Stop limiting your journey in life. You know, you've got one shot at it. One. Stop blaming yourself or everybody else around you for not getting to where you want to be. Just get up and go.
It's so true. I love your attitude. It is so true. And, you know, that's the message that I want to get across to the young people, especially because we are in such a beautiful country. We are so lucky to live in the country that we do. And, you know, what's the worst thing? It doesn't work out. Who cares?
Awesome lesson.
You learn from it. Spot on. You learn things that I call it my education fund. Yeah. And I have a very, very expensive education fund. You know, that's right. Every time I make a mistake and something goes wrong, I'm like, well, I didn't learn that at uni. I didn't read that in a book. I learned that in school of life. And I put that towards my education fund, and I make sure that it doesn't happen again, and I'll move on from it.
Yeah.
So I love that. So tell me about Champagne, right? Yeah. So I read that you do tours. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's really interesting. I love cars. I have a massive passion for cars. And I never believed in the whole car club and all that kind of stuff. So when someone told me, I'm like, yeah, what do people do? Hang around and look at each other's cars and talk about cars. Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me, right? And then I bought my first Ferrari a number of years ago, and I got invited by Herbert Appleroth, the CEO of Ferrari, to join him on a 70th anniversary to Italy. And I thought, you know what, let's do it. So I just bought the tickets and I said to my wife, Ange, we're going to Italy. The tickets are booked. The kids are going to stay with the grandparents. There's no ifs or buts, we're doing it, right? And we went on the journey, and wow, did I meet the most wonderful people that I call friends today.
Yes.
People that I talk to every day.
Yes.
And I never ever thought that brand and that car and that brings everybody together. And, you know, we went and did all of Italy, Lake Como, and so on and so on. But for me, the highlight was the people that I met through that journey. Yes. So that said, Champagne, I did read that you do the tours. Is that what it does? Brings people.
I'm so glad that you made that analogy, because that's exactly what it is, you know. And I've been running these tours since 2013. Obviously, this is the first year I haven't been able to go, which was very sad since I started the tours. And what used to happen is once a year, every year in June, I would go to France and I'd have the red carpet rolled out. You know, I've been an ambassador for 15 years now, and I'd be in these grand chateaus with the most influential men and women of Champagne, and we'd be drinking 20, 30, 40-year-old bottles of champagne and eating caviar and walking through the vineyards. And my clients would go, oh my God, can you take us with you? And I'm like, actually, I probably can. So the first tour was born, sold out. The next year, 2 tours sold out. The following year, 3 tours sold out. Last year and the year before, 5 tours in a row sold out. And we create these amazing euphoric experiences, not dissimilar to what you did in Italy, where we travel through the region and we have black tie dinners every night and everything's curated so beautifully. But the number one thing that makes this experience wonderful is the human beings that come on this trip. And I can tell you that anyone who comes on tour with me becomes like family for me. We set up a WhatsApp group. So every tour has their own WhatsApp group, and that WhatsApp group lives on forever. Now, I can tell you that with some of my groups, we chat on a daily basis. Several years on, all of them in that group, they travel together, they eat together, they stay in touch. We watch each other's families grow and change, and people's triumphs and tribulations. And the heart of our tour is around relationships. And myself and my partner who co-host the tours, you know, we're there to create a once-in-a-lifetime experience for our guests. This is not about showing off. This is not about money. This is not about being ostentatious. This is about creating a euphoric experience that you'll remember for the rest of your life. And that's why our tours are really special. It's about people. I
love that. You're actually creating a community, and I can attest to that. I can definitely attest to that, because I've done 3 or 4 tours now. I actually have done every year almost. And I have met the most beautiful, wonderful people. And if it wasn't because of that brand, I would have never crossed paths with them.
And, you know, I never thought that someone would come on my tour every year. I mean, I've got people who do the same tour every year. And when that started happening, I was like, hang on a minute, you know, this is supposed to be your once in a lifetime experience. You know, it's an investment. And we have people that come back either every second year or every year, which I think is the greatest testament to us and what we do, because they could go on their own or they could go with someone else, but they don't. They choose to come with us because what we do in that experience is like nothing else. It's gorgeous.
I love that. I love that. And, you know, you're doing a great job because you are bringing those people together. And that is wonderful, because, like, there's so much happening these days on the internet, Instagram, Facebook. But to bring people together, actual people together.
And Sam, this is important, not just in a physical sense, but, you know, if you run an e-commerce business, this is a very important lesson to other people who run e-commerce businesses. It's very important that you don't build a digital wall and you hide behind it. And I have to say, this is my pet hate with a lot of businesses at the moment, who are obviously very hell-bent on growing their business at all cost. And when I say at all cost, it's a human cost. They don't want to spend the time interacting with their humans. They don't want to spend their personal, valuable time answering emails or the phone or an inquiry or a chat. And that kind of pisses me off, because what you're doing is making e-commerce a challenge for everybody, for the category. E-commerce is the methodology and the tool that someone uses to purchase product. But that doesn't mean that you need to build a digital wall and hide behind it because it's easier for you. I think particularly during COVID, we've had a major change in the way that consumers behave. We've got more people than ever purchasing online at the moment. And some of these baby boomers purchasing online for the first time for certain categories of product. I think it's really important as an e-commerce owner, and certainly for me at Emperor Champagne, that I am communicating with people. If someone wants to pick up the phone and call someone in my warehouse, we'll answer it. If someone wants to write an email, we'll answer it. If someone is on live chat on my website, we're there to talk. And it's very important because it comes back to relationship, you know, and community. And I want my customers around Australia and indeed around the world, we're growing globally at the moment, to know who we are. That this is my name, this is my contact details. I don't hide my email. I don't even hide my phone number. If you want to get through to me, you can, you know, and I want that to be the case. I want to build a community of customers because people buy from people that they like.
Spot on. Spot on. That is so true. That is so well said. And you're 100% right. You know, personally, I buy of people that I like. And that's so important to me. For me, it's all about the experience. You know, I go to a certain restaurant. Yes, there's difference, but I go to that restaurant because when I walk into that restaurant, I feel at home.
Yes.
I know everybody's name. They sit and drink with me.
Yes.
They are part of my family. They know my kids' names, you know, and I feel at home. So I could go and eat Japanese at many other places, but I decided to go to Coco day in, day out because I love that place. You know, I feel at home.
Yes.
And you're so right. And, you know, I don't do a lot of, you know, I don't look people up, but once I did a bit of research today, I remembered something. Samantha sent me a package going back probably 3-4 months ago. And this is not, I haven't planned this. This just happened, right?
What are you going to do?
Honest truth, it was this.
Ah, you got my box.
Yeah, and I'll tell you something. And I remember when I got this, I'm pretty sure it was for my birthday in February, right? When I got this, the first thing I did was open the box and take the champagne out, and which was wonderful. But what was really beautiful for me, which really hits the nail on the head, what we just discussed, was this card, handwritten card.
Oh my goodness. Right?
And which goes to exactly what you just said, you know, about making it personal. It wasn't typed, it was like handwritten.
Yeah.
And that to me meant the world. That was the most special thing for me. So, you know, we haven't discussed anything before. It's the first time we met. And for you to say that and for me to remember this, it's just a testament to how authentic you are as a person and as a business owner. And that is so important. And, you know, it's so interesting what you just said with the e-commerce world, because my daughter, who's 9 years old, Laura, she loves business, right? And I thought, you know, why shouldn't I teach her? Why shouldn't I teach her how to do business? And it all came back from the discussion we had probably 12 months ago when she said, Daddy, when I turn 18, I want to buy this certain car. And I said, darling, you know, when Daddy was 18, he had a $2,000 Sigma station wagon.
I had a Sigma station wagon too. That was my first car. Orange.
Mine was brown. And I was so embarrassed. I used to park it 2 streets away, right? Because I didn't want any of my friends to see it. So I said to Laura,
oh my God, that's crazy.
Crazy. And I said to Laura, I said, darling, that's okay. You can come and clean the office every Saturday and I will pay you for your time. And when you turn 18, I will match whatever money you have saved. And at that age, if you decide that you still want to buy that certain vehicle, you're more than welcome to. But if you want to invest in property or do something else, then you're more than welcome to. Yeah. But nothing in life comes for free. You need to understand and value hard work, resilience, and appreciate your money, because it is very difficult to be successful, but it's even more difficult to remain successful, right? Yeah. So that said, I said to her, well, if you want to start a business, I'm more than happy to help you, you know, because you can't come in and clean the office now because everything's closed. Mm-hmm. So I said, how about we do an online store for you, right? I think it's called Plushie. She wants to sell these plushie dolls or whatever they're called, right?
Yeah.
So we did the online, and one of the things that I said to her was, Laura, darling, if you want to be successful, you have to differentiate yourself. You don't want to sell based on volume. You want to sell based on experience and communicating with your audience. Yes. So it goes back to what you exactly said.
It's very true. Now, I have an online website selling wine. Yep. There are dozens, if not thousands of online sites selling wine. Why am I so successful? I mean, we're number 3 in sales behind BWS and Dan Murphy's in Australia online.
I love that.
And I'm 2.5 years old. But the reason that we're successful is we're creating a brand, and we're creating a community, and we're creating an experience. Now, when I first started, people were like, well, don't call it Emperor, which is based on Napoleon, my interest in giving up my career in banking and moving to France, but call it champagne.com or winesales.com or winesellers.com. I can promise you that when you buy from wine.com, Mr. Wine, you can't remember who you bought from, right? It's just another website whistling in the breeze. They've got no packaging that arrives with any branding. They've got no handwritten note. It's just the shitty box that it came in. There's no follow-up email. There's no handwritten note saying, welcome to the family. You know, we try and call all our new customers, hey, welcome to the family. If I notice that I've got a sale of a half bottle going to someone's home, which means they're drinking champagne on their own, I ask them if they're okay. You know, how are you? Are you okay? Hope you're doing okay during COVID, because I've identified through the purchase that that person's home alone drinking champagne. You know, I had a girl call last week who was celebrating her 40th birthday party on her own in isolation this week. So I, like that beautiful box, I helped her choose a special bottle to celebrate. And then I threw in a set of my beautiful crystal tulips for, you know, $100 a box to make her feel special on her birthday. And I did it to make her feel special, but of course I've got a customer for life. And that's really important, to create a brand and to create a community and to create something that people will remember forever. And that's why we're succeeding. That's why we're winning. And I don't care how much time it takes me. If I have to sit there till 10 o'clock every night writing handwritten notes to my customers, I will.
I love that. And you're spot on. And I love that. And she will always remember that. And she will always remember that. And that's what, you know, it's so interesting. Like, a lot of the things that we talk about, you think it's common sense, but it's not. To a lot of people, they just don't get it. It's just burn and churn. And
but it's money, right? And it's success without doing it for the why. Why are you doing it, right? And you talk about money, and look, I've only recently invested in a nice car. And I know that's a passion for you, but for a long time I said, I'm not going to drive my money because I'm going to invest my money in property. I've just bought my sixth house. I've lost track. That's actually embarrassing. But, you know, I drove not an expensive car, a $40,000 car, secondhand car for a very long period of time. And I didn't feel the need that I had to show off or keep up with the Joneses or have an expensive handbag, even though I could have bought anything under the sun. I was earning very, very good money per annum. But I was investing in my share portfolio, I was investing in my superannuation, I was investing in my property portfolio. And only when I felt that I was on top of all of those things and had set myself up for retirement, which I did as of last year, that I went out and bought myself a nice car. And this is the thing, you know, there's got to be a line. And look, I earn money because I love the challenge. I would probably be more content if I worked less hours. I'd have more work-life balance, but I'm not just doing this for financial reasons. I'm doing it to prove to myself that I can. And I find that immensely gratifying. And I know that I won't be working forever. There's a time where I'll start to wind this back. But while I'm in my good, healthy years, I'm setting an enormous challenge for myself for global growth. And it's not about money because I'm already financially secure. This is about a personal challenge. And some people don't get that. But I've also got to say, be mindful of the money, because money's a great reward, but it can also be a bit of a curse. You don't need to have the latest handbag. You don't need to have the most expensive watch if you're doing it to prove something to someone else. You know, I think it's very important to think about the motivation internally as to why you're doing what you do.
100%. I totally agree with you. You know, it's interesting. You see, it's really changed. I'm 42. So I grew up without that whole social media and all that kind of stuff. It didn't exist, you know. And, you know, I think it's about getting your priorities right in life, you know. I see young kids these days that are 18 or 19 and they're wearing a Rolex watch. I bought my first Rolex watch at the age of 40, my 40th. I never had a Rolex watch, right? So I think it's so important to get your priorities right. But I think where it really comes from is your passion and your drive. And if you're passionate about something, you're chasing your passion. and everything else that comes with it is a bonus, but that's not what it's all about, you know. But you touched on something which I'm a big believer on, and it really affects me personally too, was you said you do what you do to prove to yourself that you can.
Yeah.
That is so true, because for me, that's been the biggest thing. I really don't give a shit what anyone thinks of me.
Right. Awesome.
I don't care
Very
because
powerful.
I don't need to. I do care about my wife and my family, and very intimate family, like my mom, dad, my sister, and my family, like just the close ones.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I really don't care what anyone thinks of me whatsoever.
Yeah.
And I have a saying, I say, you know, you don't pay my bills, so your opinion doesn't matter. I don't care. But what's really important for me and what I care about is to prove to myself, you know, and that comes from the adversity that I went through growing up as a kid, because as a child, I actually didn't feel good enough.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't feel self-worthy. I didn't feel good enough. I didn't think I could achieve or be anybody. But I took that, and instead of becoming a victim and saying, oh, why me? Life is so hard. I took that and used it as fuel to create what I did for myself.
So I wonder what is the turning point then, because you and I have had a similar journey from the sounds of it. We're the same age, we drove the same car, we're both very driven, successful people. I think it's very powerful, number one, to overcome fear. And I also think the second most powerful thing that you can achieve in your life is not caring what anyone else thinks of you. And I think those two things, if you could work on two things in your life and isolate them and break it down, that's it. Get over your fear of taking chance or taking opportunity or taking risk, however you want to profile it, and get over what other people think of you. Those two things are the two perhaps greatest inhibitors to you living a full and happy and successful life. And I wonder what it is that inhibits people from those things. And if you are out there and you're watching this video, I think that if you can tackle those two things, life will look very, very different. And they're two of the most liberating things that I've ever experienced. And perhaps I'd go so far as to say the third most liberating thing is finally coming to the terms that you can trust your intuition and your gut, and that you alone can make great decisions, that you don't need to go to your husband, to an advisor, to someone ahead of you in your industry, to a peer or a board to make a great decision, that you are capable of making great decisions using your own intuition and your own thoughts. I think that is also a great power.
Wow, you're very powerful. I love that. It is so true. Your gut feeling never lies to you. And I see an osteo, and you know, I'm not big on this whole, I don't do anything, right? I don't do anything. Yeah, but the osteo, she was telling me that they've done research, and your heart, which is your feeling, your gut feeling, your heart and everything, actually has its own memory, but also sees things and feels things a number of seconds before your brain does.
Wow.
And I take that as intuition and what you feel. And if it feels right, then it's okay. And if it doesn't feel right, then something is not right. And nobody can tell you that but you, because you feel that.
But sometimes this gets in the way, and we've got to start moving this decision down, because the brain has this monkey mind, which is always trying to mix up your head, and you've got all of these preconceived ideas, history, experiences, doubt, you know, people's voices, intimidation, whatever's happened in your past, trying to influence the decision that you make. But if you just learn to shut that down, sit quietly and trust your intuition, you know, I think it really does clear a path for you that's a lot straighter than the one that if you just rely on your mind purely, it's noisy.
Spot on. Tell me about property, because again, we have something else similar. I love property. I've been doing it for probably over a decade now. And if you give me a ruler, I can't even draw a straight line. I am terrible. All right. I can't paint. I can't draw. I can't do much. Right. So that said, tell me about property and tell me about, you know, your portfolio and what you've done.
Yeah. So I bought my first property at 21. My granddad left me $10,000 and I invested that with the first homeowners grant and bought a fabulous rooftop apartment in the CBD in Bank Place, which I should never have sold, like the dozen other properties that I had sold. So I'd bought and sold pretty much my whole life.
Yeah.
And then I got to falling pregnant with my daughter at 35, and I pretty much bought and sold and then spent the proceeds, because I lived life large, and I don't regret that. I had a great time, but I did live life large.
Yep.
And then I realized that I should have been hanging on to these properties and actually just building my portfolio. So it was 35. So only in the last 7 years have I started now to buy one per year, and to really invest in my portfolio. And that is really important to me. And I'm very sort of Greek in my philosophy now, that I don't sell anything.
I love that.
You know, and I think a lot of people are scared of banks, and rightly so. You got to get over that fear, and you've got to get smart around how you maneuver within the guidelines of lending, and know what you can and can't do with your portfolio. And I think, you know, I'm not afraid of going in and having a bit of argy-bargy with my bank manager when I want something, and don't take no for an answer, you know.
I love that. So tell me, what do you look for? So for me, I always, like, you know, I started with my first property. You know, I bought that with my wife. We went half each. We invested. And I remember, you know, we were young. We had no money. So I remember finishing work at 5 o'clock and going to that property. And I remember Angela pulling out because it was an Italian lady that owned the house, pulling out all the stuff, the potatoes and the stuff from the garden while I ripped the wallpaper off the wall, right? Yeah. And then from there, I put a formula together, like a blueprint. And I said, you know what? I'm going to only buy land. I'm never going to sell. I never sell. I'm going to just buy in this one area because I understand this one location and one area. I'm going to stick 10Ks in the CBD. And I'm never, ever going to change my formula. I'm just going to continue to do this, and I'm going to do 1 or 2 projects a year. So buy a block of land, 3 townhouses each project, maximum of 6 or 9 townhouses, depending on how many I do. And I'm going to rent it out, and I'm going to forget all about it. And I did it because I was terrible with money. If I had it, I would have spent it. So I thought, I invested in that, and I'll you know, deal with it that way. So for you, what is your formula? What do you look for? How do you do it? So let's take me to like one of the first.
So I'm very different in my strategy. I'm probably less hands-on. So I have been about diversification. So all of my property types are different. So I own a commercial warehouse. I own my 3-story house in Brighton. I have a house in Berwick. I have a much bigger 4-bedroom house in Doreen. I have an apartment in Ivanhoe, and I've just bought a farm. So I'm a bit more diverse in my strategy, and what I wanted was different types of property in reasonable growth areas. So areas that were having a period of growth. And I wanted diversification of my suburb, and then it was a rent, set and forget. So they're basically cash flow neutral, pays off the mortgage, and I have deductions coming through each year, which I reinvest into the next property. Cash is trash for me. I don't sit with any money in my bank account, because when you have money in your bank account, it's very, very easy to spend. And my partner gets really pissed at me about this, that I don't give us much disposable income because I invest it. So the minute that there's, you know, a lump sum in our bank account, straight into shares, into another property, into an investment. But I don't ever sit with cash in the bank account, because when you see cash, it's a mental thing, right? We grossly underestimate how much we spend, especially when we're plastic fantastic. If you were to actually sit there and calculate how much money you spent on things, you would scare the buggery out of yourself. So I make sure that we're always tight on cash. That way we're frugal and you're watching every cent. So invest everything.
Spot on. And I love that. So tell me, when you're not investing, when you're not doing all the things that you're doing, and I love how you got so much going on, but it sounds like
insane.
What do you do? What do you do for fun? And I know that's all fun, because that is all fun. It is to me anyway. All the things I do.
I have the same opinion, right? So I am immensely satisfied by my job, and this is very hard to explain to a lot of people who aren't immensely satisfied by their job. So then they can't wait to finish at 6 o'clock and be out the door and be doing a dinner, or whereas I'm the reverse. You know, I'm happiest at work, and I'm kind of don't know what to do with myself when I'm not at work, which is probably why I work 7 days a week. I've got a new puppy coming tomorrow, so that's going to be a bit of a change in our family. I have one child who sometimes gets a bit disappointed that mum's so passionate about her job, and it's very hard to explain to a 6-year-old why I do what I do. But that will get us out and about as a family, and will be a change of pace. I have a lot of amazing girlfriends, so I spend as much time as possible with my girls when I'm not at work. Yeah. But I must admit, I don't have an enormous amount of hobbies or activities that I do outside of the office.
So tell me, I heard that you're going to be featuring on the new Housewives of Melbourne.
Yes.
How did you get into that? And what are your thoughts about that?
I have mixed emotions.
Are you nervous?
I'm a little nervous.
Yeah.
I'm not a bitchy girl. I think women are amazing specimens. Can I just say that? So I obviously come into this process with a particular mindset. What I do think will be great about this project is it's a change of scenery for me. I'm very much dedicated to my company, and this is a fun way of doing lots of activities with another group of very talented women. It provides an opportunity for me to speak to a broader audience about champagne and about what I do, and I think that's really exciting. But of course, taking on a project like this on television, it's a huge undertaking. It's 4 months of filming every year. I've got a 3-year contract with Foxtel. And of course, these type of reality TV series are known for drama. And I'm a very busy girl, and there's not a lot of room in my life for drama. So we'll see.
I can't wait to see you on it, because just based on our conversation, I think you're going to add so much value. And, you know, I'm a massive believer of role models.
Yeah.
Growing up, unfortunately, I didn't have much of a, role model in my life. So for me, I always seek that. And especially, as a young person, you need to really look up to someone, and you need to, learn how other people are doing it. So to have people that are so successful, but so down to earth and modest like yourself, I'm actually really looking forward to it, because it adds value.
Yeah.
Yes, it's interesting, drama and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not talking just one particular show. I'm talking about all different shows, reality, whatever it may be. And it's fun, whatever, but it's more about, what do I take away from this?
And I've been cast for a particular reason. They came to me for a particular reason. Yeah. I've been cast because I'm a self-made businesswoman who is from a humble background, who's grounded. So I've been put in this ensemble of women for this very reason. Yeah. I just hope that I can show that to people, and that it doesn't get lost in a bevy of beauties in drama.
I can't wait to watch it. That said, I wanted to ask one particular question to everyone. And I know we've kind of covered it in our discussions, but the whole point of the podcast is to empower the young people in our country and amongst other countries. But that said, what would be your advice to the young people that are currently watching this show and are lost or fearful or don't know what to do? What would your advice be to that young boy or girl that's sitting there and watching this and saying, wow, what a great story. I'd love to do what you have been able to achieve. How do I go about it?
The first thing is that you might think that you're disadvantaged, but in actual fact, you're not. And I truly believe in my heart of hearts that those who are disadvantaged potentially are the ones that have been given it on a silver platter. The people that inherited a business or inherited money or inherited a house, they're at a disadvantage of you, because one, they've never had to struggle. They've never had to feel the fight, the fury, or have the fire inside that we might have through going without. That's a huge advantage. So don't ever see that as being a disadvantage. That's actually the biggest lead forward in this race that you could ever be given. So if you are disadvantaged, if you have had some troubles at home, if you've had your own personal issues, wow, what a head start you've got to be successful in life. So give yourself a pat on the back. Don't feel sorry for yourself, and know that you've got that head start of having a fire in your belly that's driven from a discomfort or an opportunity that, something that's happened in your life that's been very difficult to handle. That's a great head start. two things that are really important going forward from there. You need to be persistent. Now, I don't care whether it's raining, hailing, you had a bad day, you're sick, you know, whatever that excuse is, get up, go hard, be persistent and be consistent. So it's about repetition. Success comes from doing the same thing over and over and over again. You will not fail if you are persistent and consistent. The universe rewards people who are hungry, who are persistent. You will not fail. You know, you might fuck things up from time to time. We all do. Don't worry about it. Get up, keep going. This is about being consistent and persistent. And if you just keep doing that every goddamn day, you'll get there and you will succeed.
I love that. That is such real and great advice. That said, where can people find you? So tell me where.
Pretty easy to find, actually. You can follow me on Instagram at thechampagnedame on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook at Facebook is The Champagne Dame as well. You can look at my online site, emperorchampagne.com.au, or find me online at thechampagnedame.com. But Emperor Champagne and The Champagne Dame are my two businesses. I'm also in the middle of launching my third business, call me crazy, but Fizztopia. I'm expanding into craft beer, amazing Australian craft beer, artisanal ciders and sparkling wines of the world. We're launching on the 8th of October. So fizztopia.com.au, watch this space. Another amazing online site coming from us. So yeah, look me up. I'm not so hard to find.
And also we're going to watch you on the show on the Housewives of Melbourne next year. So thank you for coming on board today. It's been a pleasure meeting you and listening to your story. It's truly inspiring. And I love the fact that you're so genuine and real. It's just such a beautiful thing to have. And thank you for joining the show. And I can't wait to share this story with everybody else.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.